Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming full moon in the sign of Gemini on the 8th of December 2022. Now, like most lunations this year, this has a certain kind of intensity to it. And as you can see on the screen, even if you are not, a profound knower of astrology, you see that Mars and the moon are hand in hand. And Mars is the activator, and in any circumstance when Mars and Moon are together, well, that means emotional intensity, it means heightened emotions, heightened sensitivity, sometimes emotions being on fire, other times, this is Gemini air energy, emotions and mind kind of meet, but it takes, a lot to make sense of it, because another aspect that is very kind of tight is a quincunx, the sun's quincunx to Uranus. And Uranus is surprise. Uranus is also shocking awareness, truth, but delivered in a stark way, unexpectedly. So you can imagine that the truth, the sun in Sagittarius, something reaches our belief, the higher mind, if that makes sense, and the higher mind will translate it in the lower mind, so that there we have an emotional surprise, an emotional activation already. News, maybe communication of our own ideas, of our own thoughts, of our own feelings. This full moon does have a good how should I say, reflection energy to it, where we kind of learn from the self, if that makes sense. But of course in a mirrored way, where something actually mirrors our own psychology, our own attitude, our own belief system, our own way of thinking, and perhaps way of thinking is a big keyword here, because that kind of changes everything. That is the tool that we have at this moment to do what we need to do with these energies, because if we let them go on a rampage, if we allow them to do what they will, it's not going to be a pretty picture. And I'll get to that in a second. But first, let's see the rather promising side of this full moon. Like every single full moon, this can either reveal something, and in this sense, we can very well see Mars's role there. Mars retrograde even. So it can be something that either you launched as an investigation, inquiry, how much, when, officially or not, because this can very well be official matters. Sagittarius, the sun being in Sagittarius, that has a certain side of officiality to it, because it's the law and legal system, courts of justice, And Gemini, well, Gemini has practicality to it. If Sagittarius is the law, then Gemini is the petition form, if you know what I mean. It's included, but sometimes it's not Sagittarius, but the petition form is, that is the most important, especially when you're handing it in. You know your truth, you know what you need to do, but handing in the paper correctly, impeccably, that's also very, very important. And an opposition is always where we need to look at, an opposition when the planets face each other. Okay, that's their energies meeting, and, they will settle somewhere, let's say. Almost like two jets of water or light or whatever meeting each other. It will, but what we usually ignore is that where the, score has to settle, that also depends on us. Because we can add to the expression of the planet, which is really just an inner expression, an inner psychological, whatever, a function, or if we amplify that, if we add to that, if we reinforce it, if it's weakened, let's say, well, then we do something, or we alchemize the opposition. So, no, an opposition, so a truth will come, a response, a reply, something that, let's spiritualize this even, be launched into the universe. I would like to find out more about this, that, a person, anything. And the information comes. Or something comes, a revelation. Now, of course, this is just how it is likely to play out, but what we do with it, well, this is what is more important. It will emotionally awaken us, of course, Mars and the Moon, but what will we do with that emotional activation? Because that's energy being released, energy being freed, and especially Mars retrograde, it might give us an answer to close something from the past, retrograde Mars, but it can also give us a a solution to a problem, problem fixing method, a problem resolving method to, exactly as I said, to solve something from the past or ongoing, or perhaps, Mars retrograde, something from the past comes and we alchemize it and we advance into the future. But this comes in a package because it has a t. This forms a t square. Sun squares moons and Mars, Neptune, and in fellow mutable sign Pisces. So this is the energy, and Neptune, of course, also very important, is by now direct. So this adds a certain wishy-washiness, confusion, lethargy. I don't. You feel like you're totally in the midst of confusion when truly, practically, you're actually not at all. You know perfectly what is available to you and what you should be doing right now. You might be lost in future hopes and dreams and you cannot figure out how this will make sense in the future, how that will make sense in the future, what you'll do with this area of life, that area of life. That, of course, is what drowns us. That is what suffocates us. But we very well forget that maybe practically we know we have everything figured out in the now. We know the numbers, dates, fact, what's possible, what's not, how to even fix our very immediate needs. So that is what we should be focusing on, really. What we do have in our possession, Mars. What we can fix, what we can solve, and also priorities that arrange themselves. If something puts itself urgently on the top of priority list, well, don't allow Neptune to think otherwise. Do it. You need to do it. And also other aspects taking place at around the time of the full moon, which do not speak to it, but they are kind of relevant. We see Venus in square to Jupiter, an erratic Jupiter. An erratic Jupiter in Pisces is not to be trifled with. So this tells us not to get washed away by either optimism or pessimism, to use faith, the power of faith, the power of dreams, the power of magic, I wanted to say, but actually I should say it because it is what Jupiter implies, of course, magic. Traditional magic, evocational magic, Solomonic magic, Enochian magic, call it whatever you want. And the reason I named all of this is that the Sun in Sagittarius, so Jupiter's other sign, this is magic. This activates magic, and speaking about magic, I'll include a little bit of magic in this horoscope to see that actually even the sky kind of favors big fated events that impact all of us equally in a sense. Because everyone, one their own way, will feel their impact, but that a little bit later about the more magical stuff. But yes, where I wanted to go with this is Jupiter activates that, but we need to use it. Let's just say that the power of hope, of optimism, of placebo effect, all of that is included in the more magical category. So Jupiter brings that to the table. But Mars is here, and Mars needs our minds to be focused, to be disciplined. This is also the Sabian symbol, truly, of this 16, so 17 degrees of Gemini. That I forgot the, because this Sabian symbol has a very long name, long expression. So the essence of it is where a younger mind and younger ideas mature, and that becomes one's wisdom, one's intellectual power, and the gift of it is that one can activate intellectual creativity with discipline and with knowing oneself at any given moment. The only thing that is yours guaranteed forever is your mind. Now, even what I said in this day and age, sadly, is not so. So forget it. But anyway, still, we do have more authority than we imagine over our minds and mental spheres. So sometimes Mars power lies there, self-discipline lies there, solutions lie there, acceptance and truth and what to do with the truth also lies there. Naturally, with Mars, this can make it violent, this can make it feisty. Gemini rules the hands, so fist fight. Verbal fight is gonna be like properly there. Insults and unfortunately squaring Neptune curses. This is where some people, regardless of who it is that they are, when they curse, and everyone's included here, even myself, when life makes you that 5 seconds so angry, even if it happens once a year, that something truly maybe malevolent leaves your soul and comes out of your mind. It is what it is, and some people will see how powerful these words, these wishes are in a not so favorable sense. But it is what it is, really. Of course, there are, as I said, those 5 seconds when it just comes out. And the South Node in Scorpio, yeah. I can imagine that this is such a period. And of course, there are some times when we simply cannot control it because the soul just spits out the poison, its own poison. But then again, someone had to edge. So, there's always two sides of the story. But there are other times, such as this one, when we need to control it. And when we need to be responsible with words, with promises, with swear words, curses, everything. So, politically speaking, you can imagine that we'll be seeing this on the news. This politician did that. This important person did another thing. And the businesses people kind of developed during the pandemic all over the world, where they got rich overnight and truly used a dire situation to some. They used people's vulnerability, and that reverberates now. So what can I say? I wish forgiveness, because that's the only thing that could help those who truly are caught in karma's grinding machine now. But the other aspect, which also has not a lot to do with the full moon in itself, but you see Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, emotional toxicity to the maximum. But this is where It's kind of all of us. All of us have a good dose of poison. But Black Moon Lilith in Cancer is also about local or, you know, community. So your country, your region, everything that you're pretty much proud of and you belong to. And there are the proeminent people there who are like, you know, how should I say, symbols of all of that. But when Black Moon Lilith opposes Pluto, skeletons are out, the shame comes out. So this is where, on one hand, it will definitely trigger ethnical and, how you say that? Nationality, border, my culture, my religion, my this, that kind of problems. Cancer, the past, history, and Neptune also there, history. So, which history is fake, which history is real, what belongs to who, you know, these kind of issues. So, that's one side of the public, global, collective toxicity, so be prepared for that. But then the other sense, you know, pandemic stuff, how politicians, Pluto and Capricorn, and finances and businesses and what was done is now, how should I say, coming out of the closet. People have to pay for what they've done, investigations, and of course, needless to say that all of that is an illusion because they have to please the crowd. So they have to find, you know, sacrificial lambs. But no, they're not as innocent. If you're part of the political class, let's say, you sign up for this. But personally speaking, this can, you know, also trigger us heavily emotionally. A shame, you know, family issues. So this can be a rather delicate and jealousy, infidelity, you know, these sorts of complications. But at again, like any energy, it can have a positive expression. Pluto, direct, can neutralize the surgeon, purge out, puke out. If sorry for this expression, but yeah. And what Black Moon Lilith, the toxicity, the hurt, exactly my culture, my this. You get to the point where all of that doesn't matter whatsoever, and I don't even care. So it can very well be like a sterilizing moment when the toxin, the abscess finally everything goes out. Purification. It's really up to us what we do with this energy, but of course, people who enjoy toxicity and they exist. Well, they will be very at their elements. Of course, their own toxin will start to even eat at them. But for other people, this can really be a good energy to eliminate the hurt, the unforgivable, to become finally forgivable, and etc. etc. And of course, with Uranus quincunxing the Sun, who knows what kind of financial surprise we may have. And with Venus again squaring Neptune, we must really be careful, as I said, not to misuse optimism, faith, but neither to allow emotions and the illusion of all of it to get in the way. And this is where let's start the magical part of the horoscope. Well, Jupiter is conjunct a dangerous fixed star. I don't know how to pronounce it, so not even gonna. But it is responsible for the undoing of the self. So, and it drowns when emotions drown. Even, you know, be careful, because I'm not saying that anyone's in risk of danger of drowning, but drowning in the old days was associated to that fixed star. So, but anyway, Jupiter meeting that fixed star, well, it can be a bit too much for those people who are extraordinarily vulnerable. So if it's a possibility, don't be alone, because surprise, surprise, the full moon is also conjunct the fixed star. But before I get to that, that's the cure, really, if you know what I mean. Um, don't make sure that you're not alone. You're not making your situation emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually worse. Don't feed the depression, don't feed the melancholy, don't feed the sadness. It's just a day or a few days, because you are gonna feel it. Make sure that you have someone around. There is love out there. There is care out there. There is help out there. There really, 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 really is. There is. We just need to be brave enough to accept it. So if you know that you are vulnerable, if you know that you can get really, really sad sometimes, and you don't have that power sometimes to fight the illusion of the mind, who wants to talk you in that nothing makes sense, nothing, but that's not life. We are here to embody. So, yes. Then it comes to Mars and the Moon conjunct Rigel, and that is really, really positive and fortunate, and in a sense, Rigel has always been in any culture, in any astrological tradition, a really nice guy, if that makes sense. So it's optimistic. It really, really, when activated, especially like this, it brings out the best that Gemini can offer, the energy of Gemini. And it's also it's not just optimistic and humorous, and laughter cures everything. And as I said, along with the Sabian symbol, we learn how to survive and solve problems with the right attitude, with the right mindset, with being strong mentally. When our mind is fixated on salvation, on solution, on making it, on dealing with the situation as it is in the present. If it's not very optimistic now, no problem. It works. The computer works. It doesn't auto-destruct. And that's Rigel. It's also very, very practical. The star of architects who inspired architects to come up with the Sumerian, for example, ziggurats, the great temples from there. It was said that Rigel downloaded, or they downloaded from Rigel, the divine architecture. So it has a very, very, and it is home to a lot of architect spirits. May you look in Sumerian grimoires or more Judo-Christian grimoires, or anything of your choosing when it comes to certain spirits, certain principalities or whatever, who always gave us knowledge of architecture and design of things, etc. The sign and symbol of Gemini and Rigel was always one way or another hiddenly part of those groups of spirits or whatever. So that to me is really, really wonderful, because the right attitude, the right mindset, when the computer is programmed to not give up, to solve the problem. If the plan A fails, Gemini, plan B. Even if you don't have plan B, if you make it up there and then, Gemini is very not easy to be defeated. So that's the good part of it. Now the sun is also conjunct the great attractor, which is a spatial anomaly, and that also represents that the great attractor is a purifying energy. So, it can suck in all the negativity, the mental sabotage, the defeating thoughts, the pessimistic thoughts. By no means do I mean to fuel ourselves with silly, stupid, toxic positivity and optimism to force it down our throats. Absolutely not. Because that is the counter. No, never. But we can be optimistic in a realistic way, We can truly be, and if Newtonian physics doesn't make sense to cheer you up, then the new is quantum physics. So reality is not as rigid, not as mutable energy, not as fixed as we might think. So it really, you're not defeated. So let this be your driving, principle that the mind, when motivated sufficiently, it will find a solution. The mind is a blessed tool, and that's why we have it. Not necessarily to dig into the creator's secrets, but to solve problems with it. So yeah. And speaking about fixed stars, well, Venus herself is also conjunct the galactic center. So that can be a really fortunate energy. Because the galactic center basically is the very essence of the creator. It is the black hole around which the whole Milky Way revolves. So that has great power. And Venus is heart. Venus is desire. Venus is magnetism. Venus is that you deserve it. And when you feel, you believe that you deserve it, that creates a frequency. And the creation itself wants to conspire in your favor. The only thing that can defeat it is the mind. So, if our mind is programmed to support us and not defeat us, then we're actually doing quite alright. And what else would I like to mention? So, practical ways on which to use this, Gemini full moon energy. Well, especially because it's conjunct Rigel, it's really good for writing. It is really good to alchemize anything, to poetry, to, refine your communication. To, for example, I can give you a very silly example. You go to a translator to translate something and they fail. Like, they do a very bad job. Now, instead of you getting angry, you can fix the problem with a little bit of self-study. Like, you can upgrade their work. I'm sure you can find a solution with the internet, with Google Translate, with whatever it is that you can, and how much you learn from it. So you can see a blockage or an apparent shocking truth that the translator is very unprofessional, and you may have chosen the wrong professional. That doesn't have to be a bad experience, because a Gemini could turn it into something actually fun, adventurous, and that's how Gemini energy is. This a fail or a a not so fortunate experience is actually wonderful because it starts a new adventure to get from A to who knows which point, which is the final destination. Enjoy the adventurous side of chaos. Now, this is also good for, reinventing yourself, but not necessarily um, in a classical way, but Mars retrograde. So you must have a lot of unused thoughts, information, personality elements in your repertoire. Now, instead of trying to birth something radically new, never seen before, fresh and whatever, why not just make a collage, or how you say, from everything that's available to you? Just put everything into one pot and experiment with it. See what you can come up with. New is bigger risk than reinventing stuff, redoing stuff, transforming stuff. No, Mars is the ancient ruling planet of Scorpio, so Mars is also kind of transformational. Um, and it's also, this is a really, really good energy to, have a different approach. Something triggers you. It's not really favorable. The news, the attitude, your own situation, your own attitude, your own, how things are. Now, instead of getting angry, instead of allowing you to immediately jump to the other extreme, Gemini, or in some people's situation to start crying out for help immediately, stop right there and choose to do different, because you can do different. Look how much of your normal reaction is education, how much is past experiences, how much is pride, how much is impatience, how much is misaligned beliefs and bad mindset. And when you write this down on a list of why would I behave like that, just justify it. Sit down and, as I said, justify why you would be angry or swear or attack the person, slap the person, quit the job, quit this, be toxic. Just justify it and you will see that almost 80% of whatever you might write on your list is really BS. And that 20% is that you don't really know how to behave differently. So then cross out the 80%, that 20% that you don't know how to behave differently is pure alchemical gold. If you don't know something, make it up, invent it. Those people who were students, when you didn't know, when you didn't even open the book for the exam, but you were in the subject, and it was your turn, your exam. You improvised everything, and it was more than okay. And I don't know about other people, but for me personally, I got big honors for that. Like the teachers were over their, heads. So that is what we must do. Improvise, but in a really positive, constructive, and, hope-fueled way. But don't mistake this for the excessive, unrealistic, melodramatic, Piscean, Neptunian kind of optimism, because it's not the same. Neither the Jupiterian, where this is what I believe and everything has to be like that, I don't care. No. This is the where we solve problems with it. So a little bit of everything, but in a healthy and, as I said, mature but youthful mindset. I know that this is a dichotomy. How can it be both youthful and mature? Well, it can be mature, but with a young spirit approach. Just a young, with a smile, let's say, or with a touch of playfulness, or learn from your children. Go and see how your children solve problems and learn from them. Because chances are, kids are much more efficient than us. And this energy can also be used in a really practical way. Because Mars also is courage. Mars also means guts. Mars also means that enough is enough. I finally take a stand. But if that is wise, if that is diligent, if that is done with discipline, it gets you everywhere. If that is done with rage and stuff like that, it gets you, like, you need to leave a job. If you throw a tantrum and take your uniform off, throw it there and leave, well, of course, all of us might have done silly things like that in our lives, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. Calculating the dates which would suit you best, leaving pride and I'll show that boss, I'll show that colleague, I'll show that customer, whatever. No, if you leave that aside and really make the calculation, this date, that date, let's be civilized, let me, why ruin all my hard work with a rage? Let's leave beautifully. Not because they deserve it, I deserve it. Everything is different, everything is different. So this is why these aspects do, and the T square with Neptune does require us to kind of really, really be diligent. Of course, we still have the lingering trine between Mars and Saturn, and that is diligence, intelligence, correctness, being a gentleman, gentlewoman, a diplomat, not being a savage, but neither a pushover, neither two-faced, neither falsely peaceful and kind. So let's be real, but gentleness to it. And a bit of empathy and compassion, but not to the point of stupidity. It's complicated. I know it's very. Before I close, Mercury, you guessed it, is also conjunct a fixed star. So, I would advise, to be careful at least around this full moon, with the eyes. Wash our hands. If we eat spicy food, let's not scratch our eyes. Let's not touch our eyes. If you have contact lenses, make sure to change the liquid or whatever. So hygiene at the eye area, and be careful with makeup and stuff like that. Because Mercury is also conjunct a fixed star, which doesn't really favor good eyesight or having good eyesight. So, yes. So, diligence, wisdom, practicality, and also the right attitude and us being masters of our minds does pay off. And I repeat, that the best thing is not to go into the extremes. Neither being violent or standing up for yourself doesn't mean to crush everyone in an instant, even if you're a titan. Standing up for yourself means making sure that you are respected or your authority is respected. But neither does it mean to do the opposite, where when someone is using you, provoking you, insulting you, causing you emotional distress or bad words, don't tolerate it for the name of what? So, yes, the right attitude. Again, I must say that fixed star Rigel here, diplomacy, beautiful speech, having the gentle attitude, and I don't know, almost forcing your mind to go on problem solving mode is strongly advised. So I do hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support me and my work, you can find the PayPal link in the description below.